Hello friends, hope you are doing good and welcome back to NUAA-TECH videos. And in this series of Windows Server 2022, in today's video, I will try to demonstrate what are the best practices to demote a domain controller gracefully and what are the terms administrator must know before decommissioning or demoting a working domain controller gracefully. So let's proceed. So here are some prerequisites for demoting a domain controller. So before demoting a domain controller gracefully, we need to make sure that our application is working fine and the data is replicated among all the domain controllers. Second thing, we need to make sure there is no FSMO roles running on the server or the domain controller which we want to demote. Also, we need to consider the DNS configuration, the resolution towards the domain controller is working fine. All the records are updated. Verify the GC role. Also check the dependencies. Review any dependency or application relying on the domain controller services. Verify any trust is depending on the domain controller or directly created from the domain controller. Also, this is recommended to back up the entire copy of critical data or system state before initiating the demotion process. Plan a maintenance window and verify administrative credentials. So ensure that you have appropriate administrative credentials with sufficient permissions. So in our case, enterprise admin or domain admin rights are sufficient to perform this operation. Also, it is good if we can document the demotion process. Also, we need to check if there is any important shares which are created and also if there is any role of server that is installed and having the dependency. So these are some prerequisites and best practices before we demote any domain controller from the production environment. So now let's go to the lab environment and see how we can demote it. So this is one of our domain controller and due to some XYZ regions, this site is getting decommissioned and I have a requirement to demote this domain controller gracefully. So as we understood that none of the FSMO role must be running on this domain controllers. Let's validate. Let's check the host name first. Test-dc2 is the host name, and let's validate the FSMO roles. The command to check netdom query FSMO. So there is no FSMO roles running on this, and that is another DC where I have placed all the FSMO roles. Also, I'll check if there is any share. So I don't see any critical share on this server. So we are good to go, and I have already validated I am the domain admins for test.local. So let's begin. To start with, we'll click on manage, or from configure this local server, add roles and features. Sorry, from manage, remove roles and features, and the wizard will open. And from here, click on next and next, and we will just untick simply the ADDS domain services. It will try to connect the parent domain controller. Okay, and this is expected, and now we are getting the prompt demote this domain controller. Now let's click on this. Also, it is good if we check the connectivity towards the PTC and FSM role holder, and that is true, and the data is also replicated. So let's it is asking to validate the credentials. Let's click on change. Enter the credentials, administrator, and password. I have not selected force the removal because I want to do this server to be demoted gracefully. Next, proceed with removal. Next, and this is the local password that we are going to use. Once the server is demoted, and this is the script which will be executed in the backend. So let's click on demote, and the process is started now. It will take some time based on the data what we have in Active Directory database. So in this process, when we do the graceful demotion of domain controller, we do not need to clean up the metadata, but when we do it forcefully, we have to do the metadata cleanup from Active Directory. Let's say stopping the services now. Not log on. So the domain controller removed or demoted successfully, and this server will reboot now. Let's close, and the server is restarting. Just to make sure the server is decommissioned successfully or not, let's go to the PDC role holder and log on. So this is my primary DC. log on to this domain controller just to validate. This is decommission. So let's open Active Directory users and computer plugin, and from there domain controllers we can see the test DC2 is no longer available here. And if we go to the sites and services, let's refresh once. Servers, expand the servers, DC2. There is no NTDS services under this, so we can delete it now from here itself. And also we can check as a name server and DNS as well. Expand the server and forward lookup John test.local. Go to the properties, and here in the name server we have only one. So if the server is listed here also, but since I have only two servers, so one server is decommissioned and the replication is happening locally, so it did not take much time. But in production environment, if we have a number of domain controllers, so allow it some time to replicate the data among the domain controllers. It will clean all the metadata in the backend. So this is how we can decommission the server or demote the domain controller gracefully. So that's it in this video. Thanks for watching.